everyone. Welcome back to UML Operator. And in this episode, we're going to talk about managing and dealing with large model views. And this is going to end up being a series because there's so much to cover. I mean, it would take hours. I'm going to try to scale it back. In this episode, we're just going to touch on the basic principles and practices necessary to effectively manage your large working models, either in a single SQL environment or across multiple SQL and or local environments. So let's get started. Dealing with large model views requires good team practices, governance, and discipline. So when we're talking about practices, there should be a defined and reusable and consistent set of practices used for delivering whatever you're working on, software, systems, a new product realization release, etc. Project models should be stored in SQL. Local instances are fine for offline work, but when you're working in a large model with a larger disparate stakeholder team with different roles and responsibilities, it's best to be in a SQL environment, whether that's MS SQL, Postgres, MySQL, and so on. Sparx supports many different SQL technologies. Proper role-based access controls need to be configured for those instances. And you should have or involve a good communication plan filled with collaboration between stakeholders based on their views, viewpoints, and concerns. You must have good version control, whether that's in Sparx using baselining or file shares, network file shares, or connected to a version control system, but have good version control practices. When it goes into governance, should have a body of stakeholders to review and approve practices, processes, and technologies. And you may be saying to yourself, yes, but I'm a one-person shop. You still need to govern the work that you're doing. So ensure that you have different hats to wear when you're applying governance to a small shop. But we're talking about large projects and assuming more than 5 modelers and stakeholders that are involved in the delivery. Have a 3-stage delivery strategy, dev, stage, and production. Very similar to what we do in code implementation. Have regular governance review meetings, whether that's weekly or monthly. Set aside some time to deal with the new improved processes and practices and ensure that you're reviewing those prior to rippling them across your enterprise, your company, or your shop. Discipline. All process model assets require approval prior to production release. So if you come up with a pattern or a new reference data set or a new report, ensure that it is approved before you put it into your production environment for your modelers and stakeholders to use. If you put something out there that wasn't ready or is causing problems, that can be a very expensive mistake. So authors should not have or be the sole approval. So if I come up with a pattern myself as UML operator, I am not going to be the one that approves that pattern, that's new reference data, that report, or practice could be an MDG technology. I am not going to be an approver on that. I am going to give that to other modelers and stakeholders and say, hey, does this work for you? Or does this meet the process improvements that you came up with or we came up with in our last project causal analysis? And then finally, always have a fallback plan. If you release something in production, ensure that you're capable of falling back. And with baselining, it's in Sparx, it's very easy to fall back, but make sure you're failing fast. As an old adage out of agile methodologies, you want to implement fast, but you want to fail fast as well. Have a fallback plan. So the first focus area that we're going to get into is leveraging diagram filters. I've talked about this in the channel. If you go to the layout tab, you go to the filter panel, we're going to filter by phase. And so these elements are already tagged out. They're not tagged, they're actually part of the properties within a phase. If we drill into one of these and look at the properties that are involved in here, we can see that a phase of release 1 has been set. So when you're filtering, this allows you to put in proper capitalization, R1. So we're seeing everything that's in this block diagram that's scheduled for release 1. Let's look at release 2. These are the 3 items that are focused within the next release of this project. Now you can imagine if you're applying filtering, and you can filter by version, priority, requirement type, so much more here as we're working through. So filtering is an extremely powerful method that allows you to take a look at and filter the intelligence that's in your models, regardless of the model type that you're using. The next one I want to talk about is implementing Metamodel views. And if you look at the various Metamodels that are available, let's just go to Specialize, Manage Technologies. These are all the MDG technologies that are available. So of course, you've got your core UML, Unified Modeling Language, Metamodels, core extensions, database engineerings, and other things that come with Sparx for you to implement. You also have Archimate, BPMN, and so many other metamodel types that you can use. So what is a metamodel? A metamodel is a model of a model. It's providing structure, rules, and definitions for creating other models. It acts as a schema defining what elements can exist, how they relate to each other, and the constraints on them. So this is similar to how XML schema defines the XML document. By defining the language for modeling, metamodels enable consistent and structured creation of complex systems and data, and can also be used to build simplified approximations of complex simulations. For example, in the UML core metamodel, a class has attributes, operations, and parameters. A use case has actors and associations. A state machine has states, transitions, and events. So you may be working with different stakeholders for different reasons that look to accomplish various objectives in their delivery, and you want to be able to communicate and model what's going on. You may even have projects that have different metamodel implementations. For example, SysML. Your technical stakeholders may be using SysML to support the delivery of the objectives. Your business analysts and stakeholders may be using BPMN to support their delivery objectives. And you may have TOGAF certified that are using Archimate to help understand what's going on in a particular project. And then you may be bringing these things together to tell a story. That can get very complicated across large working models in order to bring them together and manage their relevance, their traceability between each other and achieving your objectives. Next is managing duplicates and reducing complexity. So you may have multiple architects that are working, and let's say, for example, someone in another model wants to create a new e-commerce. Take advantage of search before adding. So we're going to go into search here, and we're going to put in a term, simply e-commerce, because they may be coming up with something here that has e-commerce in it. And you'll see e-commerce site, which is already in a block diagram. So they could drill down, get more granular in their search. And we see that we have 2 instances of e-commerce. different versions, 0.1 and 0.2 by the author. So using a simple SQL statement such as this can help you very quickly find duplicates. But let's choose something more complicated, like machine learning and AI. One is going forward and wanting to create something with machine learning, ML, and AI in it. And you can see here that, wow, we have a lot of different instances that are there, covering different object types. Now, we're going to focus number one on class. So we have filtering turned on. These are the class elements representing this for 0.1, 0.2, and 0.3 as far as versions go. And you can try to find them in the model, or you can set up a SQL that exposes the package name that they're in. And you can clearly see that this instance of MLAI is in a package for release 1, and this one's in a package for release 2, and this one is in a design package. And then you get all the benefits of search. You can certainly come in here, export, import, you can view the notes, you can copy the search results, and do much more in your analytics, your analysis. Another tool in Sparx are model views for validation. Here is a model view of stakeholders. So the project manager can quickly understand what stakeholders are assigned to the project so that they don't duplicate adding other stakeholders or the same stakeholder over and over. So if that were to happen, we would see that we had duplication of that. I've created a very simple SQL statement for actually looking for all of the different model views that are in a given project, who created them, what package the model views are on, and we could do so much more. We could add the reason for the model views and the objectives, but to help people get to and understand the various views and perspectives of a project and reduce duplication. Here we've got delivery status. We've got 2 that are here for solution building blocks. And we would ask the question, why is that? Again, in this SQL, I focused on the package name, and I can use the package name to help find in the browser. Right-clicking on this, you can see find in browser, and find in diagrams is disabled. There's other ways to do that, but in this SQL statement here, it gives me the package name, and then I can use the find package here in order to drill down into a particular model view that may be available to me. Next, we're going to touch on utilizing working sets for stakeholder-specific views. And this is one of my favorite topics, as you all know. And we're in a design folder here, and we have a working set for a particular date and time. So we've got a convention used for that. Let's edit the working set. And you can see everything that is included in this particular working set. And so if we were to launch it, it would immediately bring up all of the elements for the stakeholders that are dealing with this design conversation as we're going through our analysis. Now, because working sets are so important to me, I've even created custom SQL for finding working sets in a particular effort. So there are these working sets that are available. They're create date, status, all of them are proposed. And then I have another one, custom SQL, that provides me the package that the working sets are in. Let's just launch that with no search term. And I'm able to look at the various working sets. Let's go into the data science architecture DSA, and we can edit it from here. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to find in the browser. Let's go ahead and find the package that it's in, and let's go ahead and launch it. So this very quickly can take subscribers, members, stakeholders to a particular effort or role and responsibility to the things that they need to get to very quickly. So here's a reporting working set. Let's go ahead and find it. And it's in the working set package. So here's the working set namespace. We can open that up and we can find the various working sets that are available for specific stakeholder perspectives. And speaking of perspectives, let's go to start and look at the perspectives that Sparx lays out for you. So you have business, various perspectives, software engineering. We can go into each one of these perspectives and simulation, my favorite, and so on. And we can create our own personal sets, specialized sets, and so on. So we can go into settings and we can go to personal sets. More importantly, shared sets, add new perspectives for, let's say, a business client. Let's just go ahead and click this in here, showing you how to do this. And here are all of the technologies that can be made available. So you're going to choose BPMN2 as a technology for the implementation. Let's go ahead and hit save. And now that perspective for business is made available and can be applied to business users. So those are the only things they have available to them. And then there are layouts. And I've talked a great deal about layouts. And let's just go to workspace. These are all of mine. If I go to my workspaces, these are all my custom. These in dark red, these are all the perspectives or workspaces rather that Sparx provides to you. So if you're working on requirements, let's just go to the requirements one. All right, hit apply and it's working. And now it is set up most productively for your specific stakeholders, views, concerns, and objectives. Now you couple that with working sets that are in here, and they're very quickly able to utilize the workspace layout to support the objectives, the roles, and responsibilities that they look to achieve. All right, we're going to speed this up. I'm going to go through some other ones that we will cover in another episode, or episodes, I should say. And the first one, or the next one, is optimizing diagram management. As I've stated before, multiple monitors is always good. Different windows across your workspace, your work area, really helps you to optimize diagram management. In-place editing, using the properties window effectively on the diagrams to avoid having to navigate through complex browser. And this will help you save time, especially when you're working on large models. And then roadmap overlays. And we'll do an episode on roadmaps and roadmap overlays and how to set them up in separately from this series. The next one is documentation and traceability. And we've talked about this a great deal in the channel over multiple episodes, and that's large models benefit from clear documentation and traceability. So you see over here, we have traceability across the elements that are here. We're able to drill down and manage the relevance between the elements in a particular diagram. You've also learned how to take particular artifacts and use different views to understand the relationships that are available within those views. So taking advantage of reporting the various model views digitally and traceability tooling available is extremely powerful in Sparx Enterprise Architect. Next is performance optimization. And I've shown an example of poor performance optimization. Let me see, do I still have it up? No, I closed it. Darn it. That's okay. We'll cover it in another episode. But utilizing your DBMS-based repositories, SQL Server, Postgres, MySQL, etc., you're going to get better performance over file-based EAP. And for an example, and I really want to bring it up, but I'm running out of time, we see that it's performing very poorly. It has quite a few thousand elements in it, almost 1,000 diagrams, and we're having a performance problem. So utilize SQL everywhere that you're doing large base models and large team delivery. The individual members can certainly work offline in a local instance and then bring those model changes back to either using version control or utilizing native XML or XMI for bringing those in. But I would use command line with your model administrator who can do this to do it offline. Just like with code, you're not deploying a release in the prime of your application running when all the users are there. That's going to hinder performance in your application, right? Same thing applies when you're modeling in Sparx instances. You want to do offline imports and deployments as much as possible. And then version control. We've started talking about this a great deal. We're getting ready to do a best practice for stakeholders utilizing version control, as well as model administrators and system administrators dealing with version control integration. All right, last but not least, best practices for scalability. Modularize your diagrams. Don't create big, large eye charts, but break them up so that they can more easily be understood by particular stakeholders at particular times. Naming conventions, standardize your naming conventions, follow industry best practices for your attributes, your operations, your class elements, your block diagrams. You can see here we have space, and in certain conventions, you do not have a space. You may be using camel, but use industry standard naming conventions for your elements. And to help manage this, training and governance. Ensure that you have governance in place to help you understand your governance. You can see in our asset repository, we have a particular namespace for governance. In our KMS repository, access from the main page, we can get to governance, risk, and compliance, and move across various topics that are critical to managing not only your models, but your business and product realization. One of my favorite models is from TOGAF, and that's the Enterprise Continuum, especially the architecture repository, where we see governance quite a bit through the delivery of enterprise architecture. And when we look at the business capabilities for architecture, governance bodies are critical to managing and realizing your business objectives. Thanks very much for watching. I know this was a long episode, but very critical to get into the next part of the series. And I think that I'm going to be jumping into setting up for model administrators, setting up a productive Sparx project for large working models. And I've already talked a great deal about this in the Model-Driven Anything series, but we'll have an episode that focuses on preparing to support large working models with everything that we've learned so far in the channel. So I look forward to that as we get into it. So until that next episode, thanks again for watching. Please leave comments and questions down below, topics that you want to cover, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. Happy modeling.